The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus left Gennesareth and withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. Then out came a Canaanite woman from the district and started shouting, "Sir, Son of David, take pity on me. My daughter is tormented by a devil." But he answered her not a word. And his disciples went and pleaded with him, "Give her what she wants," they said, "because she's shouting after us." And he said in reply, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But the woman had come up and was kneeling at his feet. "Lord," she said, "help me." And he replied, Is it fair to take the children's food and to throw it to the house dogs?" She retorted, "Yes, sir. But even the house dogs can eat the scraps that fall from their master's table." And then Jesus answered her, "Woman, you have great faith. Let your wish be granted." And from that moment, her daughter was well again. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
I don't know about you all, but that song a little strange to me, huh? Song like Jesus might have been, perhaps, perchance, referring to the woman as a dog. Huh? It sounds like it could be. Hold on and buckle up. Because it's a very important text. Many times, we read a text from our cultural perspective here in the 21st century. But you have to remember, these were first century people, and they had their own way of seeing and understanding things. And that is what we have to get at in our text. So it could sound like if Jesus had a prejudice against a woman, as if somehow because she was a Canaanite and a Gentile, that he was unwilling to listen to her or to do anything for her. It could sound that way. And that's why when we look at the first reading from the prophet Isaiah, that's the context that we have to read it out of. Isaiah 56 is a very important passage. It's one of those pivotal texts in Isaiah where Isaiah shifts the understanding of Israel. And in Isaiah 56, he's clear that God's intention is not salvation for the Jews. God's intention is salvation for all people. The text starts, "Have a care for justice, act with integrity, for soon my salvation will come and my integrity be manifest." And so we start by understanding there's no salvation without right living. So there must be right living if we're going to find the path of salvation. And so our readings today about inclusivity. Okay, remember building community, inclusivity, and dialogue is about inclusivity. And God's intention is to include all people into his kingdom. That's God's intention. But that doesn't mean that all people will get there. And that's a conundrum that we're working with today. The text has a wonderful thing, so we miss a couple verses, but in between there, it talks about eunuchs who will give praise and minister unto the Lord. So it even foresees Gentile eunuchs. So it even foresees a priesthood, because the ministering unto the Lord is the job of the priest, a priesthood of eunuchs, of single men, who will be giving praise unto the Lord. So it even sees past Israel, past into the future, into what we have in the Catholic Church today, eunuchs who are Gentiles from all the peoples of the world giving praise unto the Lord. It goes on, foreigners who have attached themselves to the Lord to serve him and to love his name and be his servants. Now that serve him is a technical term for priesthood. It's ministerial service. Another text will translate it, minister unto the Lord. So it's even talking about foreigners who have attached themselves to the Lord, who are ministering unto the Lord, who are ministerial priests, and who love his name and be his servants, who will observe the Sabbath, not profaning it, and cling to my covenant. One of the things that the text is saying is that inclusivity is not on our terms. Inclusivity is on God's terms. And whereas God wills all people to be saved and opens salvation for all people, that doesn't mean you could just jump in, look nice, pretty up yourself, and find salvation. The whole of the scripture is a journey of a people who are learning to worship their God. And that journey Isaiah is speaking about here and saying that to come to worship the Lord, it's important that people will love the name of the Lord, will keep the law, and will cling to his covenant. That there is an attachment that they must have to God, and a connection that they must have to God if they're going to be part of this faithful people of the Gentiles who come into the house of God and give worship. The text ends with a very familiar passage. Their holocaust and their sacrifice will be accepted on my altar, for my house will be called a house of prayer for all the peoples. And remember that Jesus quoted that in the temple. My house shall be called a house of prayer. And he's saying that the holocaust and the sacrifice of the Gentiles, the Gentile eunuchs who have attached themselves to the Lord, their sacrifice and their prayer will be accepted on his altar. So this is as much of universal salvation as we can hope to find in terms of an Old Testament text. But we could go back to Genesis, where Abraham is called and Abraham is told that you will be blessed and all nations will bless themselves by you. So even from the beginning when he called Abraham, it was clear that God's intention was that all nations will be blessed by Abraham. And so again, universal salvation. So now with those few words, let's get to our text, which I will tell you is a very exciting text. So Jesus left the Gennesaret region and withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. Now this is Gentile territory. So he's leaving Israel proper and going into Gentile territory. Now you remember another text, woe to you, Chorazin, woe to you, Bethsaida, if the miracles worked in Tyre and Sidon had been worked in you. So Tyre and Sidon is a Gentile territory where he had worked miracles, like this one that we're seeing here. And then came a Canaanite woman from the district. Now, a first century Jew would have known that means that this is the absolute opposite of the Israelite. You know, the North Pole and the South Pole of things? So the Canaanites, when the people were entering into the land and they came across the Canaanites, they used to worship all kinds of strange gods. They used to sacrifice their children for their gods. They used to enter into all kinds of debauchery and all kinds of terrible, unethical practices. And so they, as a people, they were known for their bad morals, for their idolatry, for their violence to their own children, to all the things that a Jew would have held sacred, a Canaanite just ran straight over. And so you're talking now about a woman who comes from a people who would be the furthest on the pole of finding a way for conversion to Judaism. and certainly to the God of Israel. And so you have to hear that this woman is representing the furthest pole of the person who will come for salvation. But she comes and she starts shouting, "Sir, Son of David, take pity on me." Now, we could remember Bartimaeus. "Son of David, take pity on me." She's asking for mercy, but she's recognizing Jesus as Son of David, which is the divine title. Now, how many of the Pharisees, how many of the scribes, how many of the learned people of Israel miss the point that Jesus is Son of David? They miss this. And here is this woman who is at the extreme of being furthest away from what you would expect of holiness and of God. And she is recognizing something that the Jewish authorities cannot see. That there's something about Jesus that is different, and he holds something that is so unique. "Son of David, take pity on me." And not only does she see the divine title and the divine royal title, Son of David, but she also recognizes that there's something that he can do, and she's asking for mercy. "Son of David, take pity on me." Say that with me. Take pity on me. And Bartimaeus has a beautiful saying that becomes the Jesus press. "Jesus, Son of David, take pity on me." So it's a shortened form of the Bartimaeus prayer. "Jesus, Son of David, take pity on me. My daughter is tormented by a devil." And the next line is a clinch in our text, Buckle up and hold on for it, eh? "But he answered her not a word." And he answered her? Now you tell me you never felt that way. Come on. You tell me you never throw everything you have begging God for mercy, and what you feel you had was just silence. Not. You ever felt that? Eh? You ever felt that you brought your best foot forward? You did everything you know how to do. You pulled the novena. You went to St. Jude. You're going by St. Martin. You're going by Mary on tire of knots. You pull out everything the church have to offer and every consolation the Catholic Church offering you, and your response was not a word. So to start with, I think we have to be able to put ourselves in this woman's shoes, correct? And feel that there are many times in our life where there were things that were so vital that we went to God for and begged him for, and what we received was not a word, not a word, not a word. And many times it is at that moment we give up, correct? And at that moment we say, well, if you want to heal, you go heal, and if you don't want to heal, you ain't go heal, and maybe I ain't good enough for that, and maybe this and maybe that, and it's at that moment you kind of sling back and you step back from trying to have faith, because it's trying to have faith business too hard, and all you try, you throw your best foot forward, and all you get was? You feeling the text? You feeling the text yet? I want you to feel it, because it's an important text. Now, the next part is a beauty. And his disciples went and pleaded with him. "Give her what she wants," they said, "because she's shouting after us." Now, these 12 are beauts, They're really special, Don't heal this woman because she has shown such a display of piety to you. No. Get rid of her because she's a nuisance. Basically, that's what they're saying. Just listen, just get rid of her. You know how embarrassing it is that you walking down the road, a band of you, and somebody behind shouting and shouting and shouting at you. And no matter what you try to do, telling them politely, shut up, that they're not listening to you and they're shouting all the more. You know how embarrassing that is? So the disciples were moved by embarrassment. And they wanted that Jesus just get rid of her. And what's interesting is Jesus. And he said in reply, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He never says to the woman, leave. He never gets rid of her. He never casts her out. He never looks away. All he says is, I was sent to the lost sheep of Israel. Now, this is such a technical term, it's not funny. It's loaded with all kinds of things. There were 2 deportations. The first deportation, the Assyrian deportation, happened, and all the 10 tribes of the north were all deported. They never came back into Israel. And that's the lost tribes of Israel. They went out, and they never came back. The second deportation was of the southern kingdom, and that's the Babylonian one that we know better, and they came back. And so the lost tribes of Israel, because remember Israel has 12 tribes, and those 12 tribes are now scattered throughout the world. So the only way to gather the 12 tribes of Israel is actually to gather the whole world back in to the kingdom of God, because they have been scattered throughout the whole world. And Jesus isn't saying, I've came only for the Jewish people. I've come for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That's the 12 tribes. Now, the next point is the woman had come up and was kneeling at his feet. Now, remember last week's gospel when we had the disciples, Peter walks on the water, and Jesus gets into the boat, and it says, and the disciples worshipped him. And the disciples worshipped him. The word here for kneeling is the same Greek word as the word in the last text that we had. And that one was interpreted worshipped. And here the kneeling has to be also interpreted as a devotion, as a sense of reverence and understanding that he is not just human being. And in the text, although here it is said, and she knelt in front of him, kneeling at his feet, we have to also read here, if we read from the last week's text, we have to read here worshiping him. And she's recognizing in him something more than just a good man. And we could see that now when we go back to the first text and we see, Sir, Son of David, take pity on me. Because Son of David, everyone knows, is the title of the Messiah. And so she's seeing him now, not just as a good man, not just as a prophet, not just as a healer whose name has been known, but she's seeing him now as some manifestation of God that she's willing to kneel and enter into prostration before him. And Jesus then says to her, it is not fair to take the children's food and to throw it for the house dogs. All you good? Anybody good here? Well, it depends, you know. If reincarnation was true, and I had to come back either as a British dog or a Trinidadian vagrant, I know what I choose, you know. I know what I will choose. But thank God there's no reincarnation. You only have one shot at this. He's making an allusion that would be a very common allusion in his time, that the people of Israel were members of the house of God. And the nations were like how you had your house dogs, that they were there, but they weren't part of your children. They're not part of your family. They're not part of your inner circle. And the woman is so brilliant. And what she says is, yes, sir, but even house dogs can eat the scraps that fall from the master's table. Wow. Now, what she's teaching us is something that is very important. That moment when you've thrown everything you have and you receive back, what is it? Many times that's the moment we stop our prayer. Well, many times that's the moment that we sling back and we drift into a kind of a whether God is or God is not kind of moment. And we drift into, well, even if God is here really like me, and we drift into a kind of a, well, you know, maybe he work miracles then, but maybe not now. And we drift into a kind of a putting God at bay. What the woman teaches us is something that is so powerful. She presses on and moves past all obstacles. And what Jesus says to her is, woman, you have great faith. Let your wish be granted. St. John Chrysostom, looking at our text, uses her as an example of real discipleship. And I think for our day, she's a brilliant example. This is not a time for fair weather Christianity. This is not a time for a kind of cultural Christianity where, you know, everybody's culturally Catholic and everybody, you know, no, this is not a time for that. We're in a time now where your faith is going to be put to the test. And where every day your faith is being challenged by your friends, by your children, by your grandchildren, by social media, by the world and all that it has. And what this woman holds out to us is this Gentile woman. This woman who is the antithesis of what it is to be a disciple. This woman who comes from a culture that is so dark and its need for redemption is so real. This woman who has every strike against her has perseverance, patience, and humility. Three of the key requirements of discipleship. She's persevering in her request of Jesus, and she's not giving up by anything that she's receiving from him. She's persistent in her request, and she's just relentless in what she's asking. And she's humble. She's humble. You know, you could see yourself in that position. Eh? Well, the amount of choice words that fella might have gotten, it wouldn't be another story. But this woman shows us what real discipleship looks like. There's another passage in Luke that talks about persistence in prayer. Persistence in prayer. Christianity is not a fair weather religion. The first of the disciples, they were all martyred. And martyrdom and standing up for your faith and experiencing difficulties is part and parcel of the Christian story. We've grown up with 50, 60 years where Christianity and the culture were pretty much coexisting together, and it seemed as if the whole culture held up our Christian values. And that time is gone. That time is gone. And now we're in a time where people look at you funny if you say you're Catholic. And people look at you strange if you say that you believe in God. And people look at you strange if you say that you actually believe in Jesus Christ and you're willing to be publicly known as a disciple of Jesus Christ. And worse yet, publicly known as a Catholic. And the hardships of discipleship is something that we haven't lived with for the last 50, 60 years. But it's something that we have to live with today. Jesus tests this woman, just as he tested the rich young man. Remember him? He went away sad. She went away rejoicing with the favor that God had given to her in healing her daughter. Fair weather Christianity was for a time past. It's not for today. Let's learn from this woman. Let's learn from this woman. Whatever the obstacle seems to be, she was up to going to the next stage of engaging him. And this is an understanding of inclusivity. It's not on her terms. It's not on her terms, just sprouting words. Jesus wants her to move beyond the words that she's saying, Son of David, to demonstrate that she really understands what it is she's actually saying. And she demonstrates it when she kneels and worships him and understands him to be God. So this woman who has no background in Judaism, no background in true devotion, no background in true love, no background in right religion, she is an example for you and for me. Is that big challenge still bothering you? Is it still bothering you? So even if you hear not a word, you don't step back. You take this woman's example and you go back into a re-engagement with him. And in that re-engagement with him, you find something that is far more precious than the thing you were asking for in the first place. A new relationship, a deeper faith, an opening of your eyes, an opening of your heart. What she experienced was both the healing of her daughter and salvation. At the end, Jesus will say to his disciples, go out into the whole world and proclaim the good news, bringing all people to the full knowledge of him. Amen.